Here with Su Ta Sien. I hope I got that right.
Yes, SJX.
I tried. SJX from SJX Watches. If you're into watches, you obviously know who this gentleman is. I'm just going to call you JX, so it's simpler now. Welcome to the Yarmarkers. Wanted to understand, you've been writing about watches very passionately for a while. It's very interesting to read your platform as well. As a fellow watch journalist, I also really look up to the content that you put out there. In serious watch journalism and content creation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think different platforms cater to a different audience. I think you see this across the spectrum of media, regardless of subject or hobby. There will always be readers or collectors or enthusiasts who are seeking a particular kind of content, something more in-depth or less in-depth, and they naturally gravitate towards the kind of content they're seeking. Because if I look at myself as a consumer of other kinds of content, not watches, but other things I might be interested in, if I'm very interested in the subject, I will naturally seek out in-depth journalism. If it's just a passing casual interest, then it doesn't really matter. So I think there should be something for everyone. Basically, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a blur in the line as to what journalism is, because today I even see content creators interviewing CEOs, for example.
Yes.
Where does serious watch journalism come into play, and what is the future of it?
I think the future is actually quite, or at least for myself, I think it's quite niche, because watches are, by and large, a fairly niche, interest. I think the very large content platforms that have, on YouTube, you can find some, I think, with millions and millions of followers.
Yeah.
Those are not really catering to watch enthusiasts or watch collectors, but just catering to casual observers, passers-by who are just interested in watches, those who want to see celebrities talking about watches or celebrities what they wear. But that doesn't really matter for me, because I'm focused on a different audience. I would say I'm focused on people who, in a way, have a similar interest to me in watches. Yeah. Because usually what I do is what I'm interested in. Right. So it's a very niche audience, but that's what I do. Yeah. I think maybe the influencers play a role in raising the general level of interest, or of bringing something to people's attention. But if you want to go in depth, say you're super detailed watch enthusiast, you want to learn about balance, frequency, inertia, and all of this kind of thing, then you have to go beyond influencers and YouTube videos. So I think also it's, in a way, it's a progression in terms of the enthusiasts' interest in the topic. As they progress, they will also go towards different kind of media platforms to seek out what they like and where they can learn.
Responsible watch journalism.
Yes. I think in terms of the level of responsibility would be the same as in any other industry. Because in any other industry, let's say I'm writing about cars or anything else, if the brand gives you something under embargo and you accept it, then you have to adhere to it.
Yeah.
Of course, if you did not receive it under embargo, you can do whatever you want, because you have no responsibility. In this case, so I guess in this case, from what I understand, it was just a mistake with the publication where it leaked. So I think that the level of responsibility is kind of like basic business practices, whether it's watches or anything else. If you accept the terms and conditions of something, you have to adhere to it, because you have a business agreement with your advertiser.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's important as well. What happens when you don't appreciate a certain product?
Well, firstly, I think I only talk about products that I find interesting, whether I like them or not. And I think there is always a level of fair criticism that can be offered that is reasonable. Like, say, for instance, the new Cubitus launch. I actually like the watch. I know some people don't. I like the watch.
I do too, actually. I think it's quite cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just think it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And that's something I say.
And that's their entry price point.
And I really think it's just too expensive for an entry-level watch, which is what I said. I wrote about that.
Yeah.
I know some people don't agree. In fact, they think it's very affordable, which is fine. But I think, there is always balanced criticism.
Yeah.
I think the problem today actually is the opposite, where on social media, because on social media you can say anything you want,
Yeah.
and nobody knows who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have people who just give silly criticism,
Yeah.
who say the watch is terrible, the designers are blind,
Yeah.
and that's not constructive,
Yeah.
you know. So I think there is always room for as long as your criticism or feedback is well grounded and reasonable. Even the brands can't say anything about that.
Yeah, yeah. I also feel like the internet has become, it's not the most credible platform to have these interesting discussions about
No,
watches
yeah.
like the Cubitus, for example. The same thing happened with the Lange Odysseus.
Yes.
The same thing happened with the Audemars Piguet 1159.
Yes.
And I think it needs to be given a chance. In fact, with the Cubitus, I think it's refreshing.
Yes.
You know, in fact, Patek was labeled as a one watch brand
Yes.
for the longest
Yes.
time, and I think with the Cubitus it kind of brings out a fresh perspective. Entry price point or not is very subjective,
Yes.
but overall I think it's quite fresh.
Yes, I agree. I like the watch. I wouldn't say it's the most creative design in the world, but it's a good looking watch that it feels nice on the wrist because it's big, it's thin, and
It's 45.
It's
quite
45.
large,
It's actually
yeah.
big, but I think
Yeah.
it looks nice on the wrist.
Yeah,
It's okay. It's it's clearly based on inspired by something else.
yeah.
But I like it.
But how do you market mechanical innovation? You think the whole marketing strategy is also getting more innovative with time?
For watches, marketing strategy, not really. I think watch
Yeah.
marketing is still quite traditional. But I think, again, it's different audiences. For the mass audience, you don't really need to explain the greatest detail because for the mass audience, most people are just looking for a nice watch at a decent price.
Yeah, yeah,
That's all they want. But it's only for the enthusiasts who want great detail.
yeah,
Whether it's in-house, the power reserve, the balance, whether it's silicon and all of that.
yeah, yeah.
So that requires a different kind of marketing that is usually not so much marketing, but it's more like explaining the product where you have the right people in the store, you have the right materials on the brand website where people can do research.
Right.
So I think the marketing is evolving to cater to the different audiences out there. And I think you see that for Patek as well. They have their, of course, their famous
Yeah.
mass media advertising, the next generation, you keep it for your next generation. But when they do presentations to clients, to press, they also have very in-depth explanations where they bring out these plastic models of the movement, of the date mechanism, the power reserve mechanism, and they explain exactly how it works.
Yeah.
So you can see there also they're segmenting their marketing, how they explain to different audiences.
Amazing. In a minute, 3 watches that stood out for you in 2024.
3 watches that stood out in 2024. I would say the cute.
They're cute.
I think the Cubitus, just because it's a Patek,
Right,
and
of
just because
course.
it's a Patek, it's a big
That's
deal.
one of the reasons why everyone's also going to be on the wait list because
Yes.
it's a Patek.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the Cubitus is one. In terms of independent watchmaking, nothing actually comes to mind
Yeah.
for independent watchmakers. And then for what else? Honestly, I would say this year there was not so much that was that
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Nothing really caught my mind.
Yeah.
Even for so no.
I agree with you. Even this year, even
No.
Watches and Wonders, if you
Yes.
compare it to last year,
Yes.
it was a slow year in terms
Exactly.
of innovation.
Yes.
Topic you've touched on. But that's, in my opinion, that's not categorically a bad thing.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the last watch that really stood out was last year. FP Jaune, they launched. He launched the FFC,
Right.
the watch that tells the time with a hand.
Right. Yeah. For
I
the
think
only watch.
No, now it's serial production.
Okay.
So there's regular production. I think that is, firstly, it's ingenious to tell the time,
Right.
indicate the hours with a hand, and also mechanically it's very impressive.
Right. Yeah.
So that was probably the last watch for me that really stood out. That was quite
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah, in terms of extraordinary, yeah, but for me, I think last year it was the tribute chronograph by Jaeger.
Yes, the
A
reversal.
very interesting
Yes.
piece.
Very clever use of both faces.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one that stood out. So nothing's really caught my attention after that.
Yes.
Honestly, even the Cubitus, I think it's got my attention because of all the hype,
Yes,
because of all
yes.
the love it's getting
Yes.
on social media. So,
Yes.
3 innovations you thought were completely useless.
Well, like what I said in response to Barbara's question, I would say, broadly speaking, oftentimes the useless innovations are those that don't really work.
Yeah.
And very often you find that in very high-end mechanical watchmaking. Like,
you mentioned one, and I completely
yeah.
agree with that one.
I mentioned the Opus that didn't work, was never delivered, and the first watch with liquid inside, which was the Concorde. I think this must be now 20 years ago again.
when the brand existed.
So in general, I think these innovations that cannot be delivered do not work. These are like the silliest things in watchmaking, especially if you get customers to pay for it and the watch is never delivered.
Yeah. Great, super, great chatting with you. Thank you for
so
this,
much.
and hopefully see you soon in India.
Yes, likewise, thank you.